And we're recording. Welcome to Learning to Dad. This is Tyler Ross. My guest today is Curtis Weinstein. Good to see you, brother. Thanks for being here.
Good to see you, man. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that you got two boys that are, like high school, college age. And
Well, I got one graduating this Saturday, man, and
no kidding.
I got his gown hanging in my closet, and I'm absolutely blown away, to be honest with you, that I'm here already. I can't even. My wife and I were like, really? And I got a 13-year-old who's going into eighth grade, so he's going to have 4 years by himself here at home, and my son's going to be going to the University of Tampa. Real excited about his progression, but it wasn't an easy path. I can promise you that.
I believe that. And then I'm glad that he's going to be at least close enough to home because you're in Orlando now, right?
Yeah, I am in Orlando, and he needs to be close to home because what is it? 4 years, 3.5 years ago, I believe, he was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, and probably the most challenging part of our parenthood is since his diagnosed. Am I saying that right? Since he was diagnosed, and my wife was diagnosed a year prior to that, so it's been a weird. It doesn't usually happen this late in life. My wife was in her early 40s when she got diagnosed, and my son a year later at the age of 14 got diagnosed. So it's been a definitely a shift. It's I would say it's probably dominated our family for the last 3 years. It's been probably the hardest thing I've ever faced in my entire life. And I've run big businesses and had successful things happen in my life, and I've had failures, and this has probably been the most challenging thing I've ever went through.
Yeah, yeah. I usually like to start out with a little personal history and business history, but I'd like to jump right into the diagnoses late in life because I don't really know anything about diabetes. You usually picture, people that are overweight and unhealthy, but you guys are, take care of yourselves and exercise. Your wife is fit,
Yeah,
like,
it's type two is where you do it to yourself basically through diet, and you don't manage your health. You don't manage your health correctly, and so they're diagnosed with type 1, which means something genetic where their pancreas just doesn't work anymore, so it doesn't produce the insulin it's supposed to produce. So just the whole learning curve of understanding it, new to you. I mean, picture this to me. I've never understood diabetes at all. So even when my wife called me to tell me she had it, it didn't even register the complexity I was faced with. She's been in the intensive care unit a couple times,
Jesus.
and with ketoacidosis when she's learning how to do it, and she's now on a pump. And when you got a teenager though who's 14 years old who eats whatever he wants, pizza, does all the things. And the problem with diabetes is it's a carb issue, right? So carbs turn to sugar when it gets into your body. And so if you don't count your carbs properly, and then I've learned there's fast carbs, there's slow carbs, there's so many different things that contribute to their health that it's just mind-boggling. And then if they get sick, their immune system affects it, and their sugar can go high, and you can wake up in the middle of the night and your sugar goes low. And so there's technology though that helps them. They have this Dexcom meter that we can look in our phone to see what his sugar levels are and her sugar
Okay.
levels. The problem is his phone has to be charged all the time.
Yeah.
Teenagers aren't always responsible, and so it's nerve-wracking. Like you just couldn't even imagine. So it has nothing to do with being healthy. It just has to do with they just got a broken pancreas, really is what it comes down to. But with technology, we're super blessed that they're coming out with stuff now it's almost like like an artificial pancreas, that it's getting to the point where you don't even need to check it just kind of, it gives insulin when it needs to, it slows it down when it doesn't, and it balances it. So we're just not to that. My wife wears a pump. We're just not to that point with my son yet. He hasn't really embraced it as it's really part of his life for the rest of his life. I mean, there's no cure for it.
Yeah.
So the good news is, Tyler, you can live a perfectly healthy life if you manage it properally.
So I remember you were up here, I think, actually with my dad when you got a phone
100%.
call. So
Yeah.
tell me about that story and like
Oh.
what the danger is for when you're not regulating your sugar.
So when my wife got super skinny, and you're like, okay, that's cool. As a husband, you're like, hey, I'm digging it, right? Like she's always been fit, but I'm like, then it got to the point where she was super skinny. I'm like, something's not right here because I've never seen you like this. And so she went a while without really knowing she had it. And then when Nicholas went to his routine appointment, my wife says, just the doctor said, for dads, man, just to think, dads that are listening to this, don't, when you see something's different, don't just brush it off. And I think that's really the thing that I've learned. And you would have thought I learned my lesson because, not to regress, but back in about 18 years ago, 17 and a half years ago, my wife had a stroke. And you're like, in her 30s. And you're like, okay, but there were signs of it. And we just didn't think, you just think you don't think that, right? But when you look back, you're like, oh my God, all the signs were there, but you never think it. So I think the advice is make sure you pay attention to your body, make sure you pay attention to your kids and the changes that are happening. If they seem weird, you should question them. And so my wife had enough, smarts or mother intuition to tell the doctor, can you just check his sugar? Because he had grown, but went down in weight. And so it's a big weight issue. Okay. And it makes you real thirsty. And this is before you get control of everything. And his sugar was so high that they said, either you drive immediately to the hospital, or I'm calling an ambulance, because it was that high where he could have went into ketoacidosis. And so I was with your dad when my wife called me. As a matter of fact, we were at RTJ, and I'll never forget. It was my wife was beside herself because she had already gone through it, right? So she was already a year into it, and she knows how difficult it is. So I think her fear and upset nature was about A, it's going to make it even harder on her, but B, she knows what he's going to have to go through now, and she doesn't. Nobody wants your kid to go through anything.
And what is ketoacidosis? Like, what are the symptoms?
It's when your sugar gets so high. I don't know the exact details, and I do a little bit of a disservice to the disease, but just a rough idea. It's like where your body, I guess, when your sugar gets too high, it's almost like your body produces more carbon monoxide or it's something similar to that, and literally your organs can start to shut down. You die. I mean, you literally could die from it, and so it makes your heart function differently. Remember, it affects your muscles, and the biggest muscle in your body is your heart. So if you don't keep your sugars balanced, that's the muscle that you're going to hurt the most. That's hard to rebound from. So now when your sugar goes low, it's a different thing. You pass out, and then you can just, I hate to say it, but just die in your sleep. I mean, there was a story just this year where a 5th grade girl went to stay at her a birth sleepover. I mean, how many sleepovers have we been in our life, right? As a kid, a birthday sleepover, and the parents did everything right. They gave the other parents all the instructions, the insulin, everything right, and they did everything they were supposed to do. The hosting parents, but the kid was likely not doing what they were supposed to do, and kid went to bed in 5th grade, and the sugar dropped, and nobody noticed, and the kid passed away. So so you hear stories like that, it's frightening, and it makes your heart just twist, and you just go, God, I hope that's never my son or my kid, Mm-hmm. But it can happen. It's horrific. So and the problem is when you got a 14, 15-year-old, Tyler, they don't believe you yet. They don't realize the magnitude of it. They think they're Superman, and it's our job not to necessarily be their friend, but to be their protector. Mm-hmm. And you keep saying it, and you repeat what the doctor's saying. They're like, I feel fine. I'm not, I don't need to do this. I don't need to do that. And especially when they become teenagers, they'll eat stuff without telling you they're eating it. And his doctor gave him a hard time recently because his sugar's been high. So it's just so hard to manage. But ketoacidosis is probably the worst thing that could happen, really, because you end up in the ICU. And she was in the intensive care unit twice for a couple of days each time. So
that's unbelievable.
It hasn't happened to him yet. But what's funny, well, not funny, but he'll say things like, well, I haven't been in the hospital yet, so why are you giving me a hard time about my sugar? You know what I mean? Like, I'm an adult, but he's really a kid kind of mindset. So I'll tell you, it's not easy, man. That's probably been, I'm telling you, it's by far the hottest subject in our home on a daily basis.
How do you manage that, I guess, 15, I want to call it ego or sense of pride or lack of experience? Like, what are the things that you feel like you can do to paint a real, a reality picture?
He's going to be 18 in 2 weeks, and I, I don't know. I tried to be a father who cared, and I found myself being a father who was angry all the time because I couldn't get him to understand the importance of it.
Yeah.
And when you feel like you're out of control, you don't have control of something, and you feel like a child is being, I would say, unintentionally defiant, right? I don't think he's waking up going, I want to make sure my sugar's not balanced. I want to piss off my parents. I want to do all these things just to upset them. I don't think that's the case. I just think he's a young man who, at 18, I don't think you're an adult yet. I mean, I don't think you're an adult until you're in your mid-20s, to be honest with you. I mean, you still got so much there's no way, right? I mean,
Yeah.
so, I found myself getting angry all the time, to be honest with you. And because I felt, to me, I'm so, I was in the military for 7 years. I've been running a business for over 20 years. To me, everything comes crystal clear. Like I don't ever look at things as obstacles. I am always focused on solution. It just doesn't matter to me. Like some people look at, they're trying to get to the other side of the river and all they see is the deep canyon and the water below. And I see the trails left to right. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I've always been. And I think that's survival mode. Personally, I grew up the youngest of 4 boys in government housing in Connecticut, a single mom. And so I didn't, what's funny about me being on this podcast is I didn't grow up with a dad. So it's interesting that I'm here giving father advice because it's like Mike Tyson said, man, you can have a game plan, right? What did they said to Mike, Mike, do you have a game plan? And he said, and this is my bad impersonation of Mike. He said, you can have a game plan, but as soon as you get punched in the mouth, that game plan is thrown out the window, right?
Yeah.
You can read as many books as you want and you can study as much as you want. But I found that where I learned to be a dad is hanging out with guys that are I've always been friends with people that are older than me.
Yeah.
Your dad, for example, Mike Stonehill. My best friends in the history have always been much older than me because I've always picked people as mentors that are father figures that are responsible, and I think that's helped me grow. And the fact that I went in the military for 7 years helped quite a bit. But man, I'll tell you what, Tyler, being a dad, this is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, man.
Yeah.
Every day I leave the house going, did I do the right thing? Did I, should I have said that? Did I, it's hard, man. There's no perfect. I think the best thing you can tell dads out there is, it's okay to make mistakes. Like we're all trying to figure this out. There's no manual for this, right? There's no manual to control emotion.
No, I think it's wild. Yeah, to think that people would tell you how to raise your kid, let alone raise their own kid in a particular way.
Well, just look at all these relationship experts. The guy from what is it? Men Are from Mars and Venus or whatever. Yeah. He got divorced. So I mean, it's just maybe not like these people are experts on things. It doesn't mean they're good at it.
Sure. Yeah,
it's
that's well said.
It is really, really hard. And, I don't want my kids to look back and go, my dad was tough or my dad was this. I want them to look back and go, my dad cared, my dad cared about me. And I think sometimes, guess what? I as a dad, I just want you to know that our feelings do get hurt. Like my feelings get hurt. I'm not this robot, so like when you do a lot of nice things for your kids and you don't get reciprocation back in the form of respect or acknowledgement of the stuff, that the sacrifices you make as a parent, I think it does weigh on you after a while, and I think sometimes I get resentful almost like, I mean, do you not see what I do for you? And you can't do these simple things to make our house happier. And I think, you try to look and go, okay, it's not, I don't think they're doing it intentionally, but I didn't have a great example of a father. So, I only had my mom who worked 80 hours a week. And when she got home, she was so damn tired that all she did was yell at us. And I mean, she was a good mom. Don't get me wrong. I love her to pieces. She's an amazing person. When I look back at what she had to do, I look at my life now. I'm successful. My business is successful. I'm financially successful. I've been married for 22 years. So I'm relationship successful. I have 2 kids who are healthy for the most part, you know, without diabetes. But I mean, they're going to graduate high school. They're going to go to college, and so I mean, I've beat the odds. You know, if you look at where I came from, and my mom, you know, I tell my mom that all the time. You know, I wouldn't change it for the world. What I went through, but I wouldn't want my kids to go through what I went through, and that, you know, that it's what's his? I'm so sorry.
Jesse Itzler.
Yeah, Jesse Itzler. I loved listening to him because I've used this no less than 50 times, which is he used an analogy that his dad used to let him get hit in the face all the time with the ball, right? Yeah. And the ball is anything in life. Mm-hmm. And I feel like I am like a professional catcher, you know, and because you know, there's times where I want to induce pain on my kid. I never thought you could love something so much, but want to take its life away at the same exact time. I mean, I don't want pain. I want it to be really quick, but no, I'm just kidding. There's times where you're like, I can't believe you're my son. Why are you doing this to me? Why are you acting like this? You know? Yeah. But you also have to remember, he's not just your son. He's a human. He's a man with emotions. He's learning to be somebody. He's got to be independent at some time, you know? Yeah. You know, at some point in the wild, they don't meet for dinner. You know, they separate and go start their own pride, right? The lion, they leave, right? There's not room for another male lion. And so eventually, even as a kid, you're kicked out of the house. And thank God we have emotion and feelings and empathy and compassion as humans. But, you know, he still is trying to figure out how to be a man. Yeah. And so he's going to challenge you. They're going to do things that, you know, so, and I look back and the reality is his worst moments aren't even like on the radar compared to my worst moments. So I have that to really rest on. But I think we're in a different day and age. We didn't have social media when I was a kid. We didn't have all this technology when I was a kid. And I think my biggest frustration as a father is my kids are literally addicted to their phones. Yeah. It's exhausting to me, man. I'm not to get off point, but that is just being a father, managing that in itself is a hard thing. It detracts like doing homework, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that I like to talk about is the different contexts. You know, the time in which you grow up is different than me, is different than your kid. And would you say that's kind of the biggest, you know, difference in your growing up, like with the biggest impact?
Well, I mean, Tyler, I grew up the youngest of 4 boys in government housing. We didn't have, I can remember not having electricity and not having heat because you needed oil in Connecticut, not having oil, sleeping with my winter clothes on, using socks as gloves in the wintertime. I would go door to door, shoveling snow, raking leaves, mowing lawns when I was 9 years old. I had a paper route when I was 9. Hartford, get up at 5 in the morning, rain, sleet, or shine. I'm delivering newspapers. I mean, I have trouble getting my kids to pick their clothes up off the floor. I mean, it's weird. It's just in a different era, man. I had to I didn't do it because I wanted to. I did it because we had to, and we would give the money to our mom to help pay. And I'm not telling you I didn't skim a little off the top. You know, the envelope was a little bit light. You know, you don't grow up in government housing in the projects and not learn a few survival skills. So, but for the most part, I was forced into that. And I wouldn't change it for the world because it allowed me to learn how to go, you know, my whole career started knocking doors, selling home security systems. So
I believe if somebody had recorded that would have been one of these viral videos where people go, holy shit, people sell that like that effectively, that well. I've seen you pretend to sell and I wanted to buy whatever you had. I didn't care.
Well, it's definitely, but I'll tell you, I learned that through survival. It wasn't like, I didn't, there was no manual. So if someone says like, do you have a book? Write a book. And I'm like, I thought about it, and it's hard for me to sit down. I would have to hire somebody to just listen to me, because when I read books about sales or things that or anything, it just, to me, it's like, why are you like, you're really, people are buying this? This seems like common sense to me. Right. But common sense is not so common. That's the thing you have to understand. But, you know, getting back to the kids, I grew up so much different. Now they're growing up with this. The conversation I have all the time is my biggest fear is my kids don't know what the real world adversity really is.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Adversity to them is they got to come home early. Adversity to them is do the dishes. Adversity to them is take the dog out, clean up the dog crap out of the yard. That's adversity to them. I mean, adversity to me was, am I going to eat tonight?
Yeah.
I mean, am I sleeping with a winter jacket on and moon boots because I'm freezing in my own house?
So do you have to like contrive adversity so that the kids grow up to be resilient?
You know, the problem is, you know, you in a marriage, you have two people. You have a mom and you have a dad, and mom is very compassionate, and dad is probably, I'm a hard ass, man. I mean, in a sense of, I expect excellence.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like my son got a 3.8 GPA. He should have had a 4.4. He's that smart.
Yeah.
Never did homework. You know, and here I went to a public school, barely graduated. His high school cost $22,000 a year. You know?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Different context. Yeah.
What is adversity? I mean, like when I didn't do my homework, I got an F. When he didn't do his homework, I got 9 emails at home giving us more than 27 chances for him to catch up so he would get a good grade.
You know, wow. Yeah.
We're just in a totally different environment than we were growing up. And I think the biggest issue is, I honestly think social media and the internet and these false narratives that float around, and, you know, everybody thinks everybody's successful and everybody thinks everybody's got all this great things happening. And what they don't realize is how hard it is to get there. You know, my son never says to me, or anybody, even anybody who wants to do what I do or have the success I've had, which is nothing compared to a lot of people out there. I mean, I'm blessed, don't get me wrong, happy with my life, but you get guys like Itzler who is, you know, I mean, just, geez, like completely different planet, right? And I'm not complaining because I'm totally blessed with what I have, but they don't realize, nobody asks what you had to do to get there.
Mm-hmm.
They just, I want that. And they come to work for you and they expect to be an executive day one. And I'm like, look, I was knocking doors for 10 years as an owner. So now new owners, I have a dealer program in my business, and the new owners come in and they think they can do what I do. And I'm like, no, you're missing the first 20 years of my career. You're not paying attention to that.
Yeah, one of my favorite lines.
I am enjoying the result of all these years of work.
Yeah.
You want the result without the effort, and it doesn't work that way.
One of my favorite lines is, I worked 15 years to become an overnight success. Yeah, just applies.
That's a great line, by the way. And I'll steal that line from you, because you're 100% right. People just see the success. Like, they don't realize how hard life was, you know? And I'm not like, it's not a pity party for me. I'm not asking for anybody to feel sorry for me. I wouldn't change the way I grew up at all.
Why'd you grow up without a dad?
My dad left when I was, I don't know, under 2 years old. I don't ever remember him being at home. My parents just got divorced, and I was the youngest, and he just wasn't involved in my life. My older brothers had time with him. He tried later in life to get involved, and, you know, it's a weird thing. I'm wired a little bit differently. I think growing up the way I did, I learned to be a survivor. So I'm very resilient in a sense that I don't allow toxicity into my life. Mm-hmm. And so if something's toxic, I cut it out of my life. And so a prime example is, my wife was always concerned that it's very easy for me to cut people out of my life if I don't feel like they bring value. Yeah. And so I'm a very positive person. And it's not that I don't like negative people. It's that I won't entertain the fellowship of it, right? And I said to my dad, I said, look, I love you for life. I just don't like you. Like, I'm not happy with you for the decisions you made. And then I tried to bring him back in my life, and it just didn't work, right? It was too late. And he has a lot of personal issues. And so, and I don't want to pick on him because, you know, I'm sure he had issues growing up too. But I've just decided that if something doesn't bring me joy or value, it's like this. The word I use is, there's people in life who are energy inducers, and there's people that are energy reducers, right?
Yeah, sure.
And he was an energy thief.
Yeah.
He would just steal my energy with negativity all the time. And so for me, I don't ever want to be that person, right? I want to be a great dad. I don't know if I'm a great dad. You'd probably have to ask my kids. You know what I mean? I really don't know if I'm.
That's why we're here, trying to figure out what that is, what that looks like.
I don't know what is it a roof over the head? Probably not. You know, is it money in the bank? No. I mean, I think it's time spent. And like my wife was worried that, you know, my son would piss me off to the point where I would cut him out. And that would never happen. You know, he's my boy, you know, I love him.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm going to love him unconditionally, but I don't always have to like him.
Sure. That makes perfect sense to me. I get that. Well, let me ask you, were you with your company successful prior to having kids, or was it after you have kids? I'm wondering where you were in your professional life when.
I was successful prior. I got out of the Air Force in 1997. It was an interesting. I met my wife in October of 96, married her in March of 1997. Nobody thought we would survive. We went against all odds. Been married for over 22 years now. Got out of the Air Force in November of 97, moved to Florida in November of 97, had another wedding in November of 97 because we eloped in March of 97, didn't tell anybody. We did the family wedding in November of 97. So now my wife's been milking me for 2 anniversaries for 22 years. Total scam, dude. Total scam. He's been milking it too. And so I mean, I've been asking for that to be annulled, the first one. Not likely to happen. So we got that going on, and then moving. So I did, you know, look it up. 3 of the most stressful things you can do is change jobs, move, and get married. I did all 3 of them at the same time.
Yeah.
And so we I mean, if you really want to get deep into what it was like, we actually built a business. It was pretty successful. I mean, you know, not where I am now, but still very successful compared
This was the security business.
Yeah.
ADT?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, actually, my first business was the Kirby business, selling vacuum cleaners. I sold door-to-door vacuums for a couple of years, and I always focus on the alarm side of things, but you know, I guess I wouldn't do any justice without at least talking about that. I started selling door-to-door vacuums when I got out of the military, and I was really good at it. And I was the fastest promoted factory distributor in the history of the company. I went from sales rep to factory distributor in 13 months.
Yeah.
It meant I made a lot of money doing it, but I hated my job. I absolutely despised what I did. I would leave the house at 7 a.m, go to the gym, run a meeting at 11, leave to go to the field. I'd get home at midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning every day. So I almost destroyed my marriage over it, but I built a good business. But here's something I would share with you, that there is no success outside the home that will ever make up for failures inside your home. I want that to resonate a little bit, right? Yeah. There's no success outside the home that will ever make up for failures inside your home. Give me 1 second. I need to plug my Mac is dying.
Yeah, you bet.
But so the success for me came, I think while at the beginning. I always knew I was going to be successful. I didn't know at what level. I just knew I was always going to go out and make my own difference. And even when I was in the military, I had part-time jobs. They used to tell me I was Jamaican. They said, look, if they go, what do you look for jobs in the obituary, man? Someone said there's got to be an opening. I met my wife at a pool hall. I was a bartender at Fast Eddie's Billiards in Alexandria, Virginia. I was a doorman. Back when I was in the military, my job was carrying caskets. So I weighed over 200 pounds. I was lifting weights every day, and never played golf. I wasn't golfing then. And she was a bartender going to school, and that's how we met. And so it's weird how life evolves, man. But the success in business was there, and then we ended up, my wife got pregnant with our daughter, and unfortunately we lost that baby at 7 months.
Wow.
Then we ended up getting pregnant again, and 8.5 months pregnant. And my wife had a terrible situation where her placenta abrupted, and we lost a second daughter. And so it was pretty awful. We didn't think we were ever going to have kids, and that was late pregnancy.
Yeah.
Then we had Nicholas. So he was a gift from God. And then 6 months later, she had a stroke. We found out all the reasons. They were all the same reasons why she had the complications with the pregnancies as she did with her stroke. And so they at least figured out what was wrong. And so they got that part. And then we weren't we weren't going to try again because of how hard it was. And she got pregnant again. And it was, I don't want to say by accident, but we weren't trying to have another kid. And we were trying to be careful.
Yeah.
And, you know, so Michael Phelps got in there somehow. So,
well, let me, those two experiences are horrible. And there are other people that have had those experiences or might have those. Like, is there anything you can say to those people on how to help manage that, you know, working together or on your own?
you know, to be raw and authentic, I don't know if my advice works for everybody because my wife is still dealing with it to this day.
Yeah.
And there's a thing in business or in life, it's, you know, you have the IQ, right, which is your intelligent quotient. And then you have an AQ, which is adversity quotient. And I realize that I have a very high adversity quotient and that for me, I'm not a big mourner on death because I kind of feel like it is what it is. There's nothing you can do about it. You can't change it, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I don't mourn, I'm not sad. I just, remember I told you I look for the trail to get to the other side.
Yeah.
I'm so focused on avoiding the pain by thinking about what I can do moving forward.
Yeah.
So for me, my wife and I are polar opposites when it comes to that. She is, she sees every problem with every attempt on everything. I never see a problem. I see the solution.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why I'm successful in business, but it's really hard being a dad and a husband because she'll say something and I'll be like, well, that's easy to fix. And she's like, I don't want you to fix it. I want you to listen to me. And you're like, well, okay, well, but aren't you upset because it's not fixed? No. Well, okay. I'm really confused, right?
I feel like that's a pretty common theme among men and women in my experience. My wife's the same way.
Oh, do you see the video that was went viral with the guy it shows a close up of just the back of their heads and they're talking and she's like, you don't understand. You never listen to me. And then he looks up at her. I'll send it to you, Tyler. And he's like, you do have a nail sticking out of your forehead. She literally had a nail sticking out of her forehead. He goes, that's not about the nail. She goes, just listen. He goes, okay, I'll listen. She goes, you know, I've been having these headaches. When I roll over, it hurts, and my sweaters are snagging. And he's like, do you know if you remove the nail? It's not about the nail. You can picture it, right?
It feels that way, right? It can feel that way.
Yeah.
But I'm learning. There's a quote from The Office where Michael Scott just has to say, yeah, that really sucks. And then it's fine. Like she's happy. You know,
It really sucks.
I'm sorry, that sucks. And then I have to stop talking and everything's okay.
I try that, but you know, when I do that, you know what she says? You're being condescending. Because she knows it's not me. So I can't win. So I'm just like, I love her to pieces. So you know, we work through it. Yeah. But I am truly a problem. So I'm a solution-oriented person. Period.
How's that impact? Talk to me about sales a little bit because you probably are very natural, but you've got honed skills over experience. Like, are there any, you know, if you were going to write a book, do you have some ideas of what you'd put into it for people that are in sales?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting because I thought the reason I never wrote a book because I thought it wouldn't be a good book because the stuff I have to say it to me, like I was telling you earlier, it just seems so common sense, right? I'm reading stuff, I'm reading people's books and I'm going like, okay, I guess I could have wrote a book because this is like, is this what people are starving for? That's what I'm thinking. Like, it's so common sense to me. Like, you know, in business, I don't overanalyze. If you make 5, spend 4, you made 1, right? Like, if you made 5, spent 6, you lost 1. And I don't have a business degree and I've never not made money. You know what I mean? I've always had. Now, it took me about 6 years to realize that I was probably, you know, so for me, my lack of skills of actually being a business-minded person, I was business-minded, meaning I was a hustler. I would hustle and go make money. But if I had somebody on my board early on that understood P&Ls and economics and things of that nature and streamlining things, I wouldn't have had to sell so much to make the money I made. Yeah. Every time something would seem hard, I would just go sell more, right? You know, they say there's a saying in business that prosperity hides a lot of sin, right? Mm-hmm. And so in business, you have a lot of, there's, big companies, if you get deep into the weeds, you'll find a lot of errors. But because they're selling a lot of stuff and they're making a lot of money, then it sort of gets whitewashed out. But when you're a small business, if you have a bad week, you don't have the deep pockets of Wall Street has to fill the coffer, right? Like you hear all the time these big public $1 billion loss in quarter 3, and you're like, $1 billion, and they're still in business, right? Like, so you know what I mean? It's different numbers, and so for me, I just took a very common sense approach. Now, I will tell you, after 20 years, I've learned to surround myself with really smart people. And I would say this, if know your spot on the bus, and mine is sales, motivation, and I actually, I've got a really good compliment from our CFO, who's my business partner, is a Harvard business grad. And he said, you think about things correctly, right? Yeah. And so I was like, oh, okay, he goes, you do it very naturally. You don't realize it, but he goes, you're regurgitating things I've learned in school, and you obviously never went to school. And I said, well, I feel like 20 years of business is and then knocking doors for so long. I mean, that's like a degree in communication if you think about it, right?
True.
I mean, where else can you're meeting new people every day, all day. You're being rejected nonstop, right? Yeah. You have to learn how to capture someone's attention in a split second. A deal is made or broken like that. Yeah. And so you don't get them to break the ice like that. And I've always done it through humor. I was always really good at getting in houses just to share my story, to sell my product. And, people would go to the door robotic, right? And they'd stick to the script, and the script's important, but the delivery is probably more critical, right? Like a joke is only a good joke if someone knows how to deliver it properly. And
right.
Your dad and I would put myself in that category. I'm very good at delivering jokes. And so, but there's other people who can take that same joke and deliver it, and you'd be like, oh, that was not that good.
Yeah. You got to know your audience too. You got to be able to.
Yeah, it's just the delivery. So in business, it's very similar, right? It's there's a lot of people who are book knowledge that can't apply it to anything.
Yeah.
And I have the book knowledge, Tyler, but I have the experience, which I think is greater than the book knowledge, because remember, books are written from experience.
Yeah.
I just haven't written my book yet, but I have enough experience and knowledge to write a book, but I'm just not a scholar in the sense that I just don't think. I'm too ADD. I couldn't picture myself sitting down trying to write a book. I think if I recorded a lot of stuff over time and then had someone transcribe it, then that would be my book.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I get in front of 1,000 people to speak about certain things, and I never have a plan. It's just tell me what you want me to talk about, because it's coming from here. They were like, don't you have something prepared? I do. It's right here. It's called experience.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we didn't prep for this call, did we?
Yeah. No. Yeah. Point you in a direction, wind you up, and go.
Well, I hope I'm giving you good information at least.
Oh yeah. Well, let's talk about sales a little bit. Like if you were selling now and selling 20 years ago, is your approach different because the time is different?
Yeah, it definitely would, because when I started selling, we didn't have the technology.
Yeah.
So it was really like a scattered approach, right? So we would, if we were going door to door, we would just go into a neighborhood and just pound. There was no rhyme or reason to it. Now today, you can really hone your skills more through data and technology, right? So I can know before I go the best neighborhoods to go to. Like I know what kind of credit I'm looking for, what kind of customers I'm looking for, what the household median is. You get all the information.
Are you still knocking on doors? You got
not so much anymore, but I have hundreds of people who do.
Yeah.
And they're still following the same script and philosophy I did 15 years ago. So, selling hasn't changed, man. I mean, door to door has been around forever. My grandfather used to sell shoes door to door, out of a catalog. So picture that.
Wow. Yeah. Here, pictures, pick one.
And be like, doesn't that picture look comfortable to you? You know what I mean? Right? So it's like Knapp shoes, Knapp. And, he was a door-to-door tailor. And so I think inadvertently I was going to end up as a door-to-door or something. But people I've had people at the door tell me, go get a real job. And I would laugh as I walked to my Lexus, And it's like, what is a real job, man? I mean, I'm out here hustling. What's a real job? Is a real job McDonald's? I mean, what's a real job? I mean, what does that mean? I mean, anybody who's out trying to, I commend anybody doing anything, man, you know, as long as you're making a difference and you're trying. I've always been a big believer in, you're growing up where I did. It's just important to stay humble and not look down on people, man. You know, and even to this day, like my favorite people that I like, even at my country, I'm a member of a really nice club. And it's funny, Tyler, because I'm like, I don't belong at this club. I'm not this guy. Like you know, I'm successful, but I really still think I'm still the guy from the hood, you know, and I mean, I'm more articulate than when I was a kid, but I still have that survival mentality. And my favorite people are the workers, the guys cutting grass. And I mean, I always ask people, do you ever just stop and say thank you to the garbage man? Like, cause problem is most people look down on the garbage man. I mean, without garbage man, we'd have filthy streets.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, I feel like you got to thank the people, you know, that's bagging your groceries. I mean, that are, you know, like the people that it's unfortunate. We're not in an equal system, right? Like not everybody gets to experience the same level of success. If you can't have a number one unless you have a number 10.
Yeah.
If everybody's the same, it doesn't, if everything on your list is important, then nothing's important.
Yeah. So what do you do to maintain that perspective? Do you have like a practice like journaling, church?
No, well, we do go to church, and I am a Christian, but I'm not a Puritan. Let me make that clear.
Yeah.
You know, I am saved, and I do go to, you know, I'm non-denominational Christian, but that's my thing is I'm a member of a nonprofit organization called Brothers Reaching Out, and it was started by Tony McGee, who's a 12 or 14-year veteran in the NFL, and Joe Logan, who's a Major League Baseball player. And we got some other athletes involved as well. And we work with the inner city kids down in Orlando at the Boys and Girls Club. And it's staggering, man. It's like heartbreaking that most of these kids, half the kids, we sat in a room with, say, 20 kids. 10 of them, their dads are dead. 5 of them, their dads are in prison. And the other 5, they don't know who their dad is.
Yeah.
And so in the lower income areas, it's so prevalent for single moms to be raising kids. And it's, you know, I feel like I got lucky.
Yeah.
I mean, I joined the military. Well, I'd say some of it's luck. My other brothers were fairly successful too, but none of us went to college. I think my mom did a good job setting us up. So I got to give my mom props, but you know, cause she taught us right from wrong. And, you know, we weren't like in trouble with the law. I had one brother that was, and unfortunately he passed away in jail. I don't want to say prison, but he was in jail. And so a horrible accident, but the thing is that you have, but that's another example, Tyler, where it's like, it is what it is, right?
Yeah.
You miss them, but what do you do?
You do.
Nothing you can do about it. And I don't believe in pity parties, man. So like when my kids are upset, I have compassion for them, but at the same time, dude, pull your pants up. Let's like enough. Like we got to move on. Like we're not going to sit here and let these things control what you do next.
Yeah.
It is what it is. And I don't believe in focusing on things you cannot control.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it's easier said than done sometimes, but I think most people struggle in business and in parenting and in life because they let the emotions control them.
Couldn't agree more. Yeah. One of my favorite sayings to anybody who I get the opportunity to tell it to is, if you can't control it, don't worry about it. If you can control it and don't worry about it.
Right. You still got to do something about it. But what does worrying do?
Yeah.
It affects your immune system. It's a horrific, anxiety is such a terrible disease that you live in if you let these things get to you. And you have a choice in business to either respond or react.
Mm-hmm.
And believe me, as a father, I think I've reacted too many times.
Sure.
You know, when I wish I would have responded. And it just, I think, you know, when I think back as I'm talking to you, I think every situation for me, the reason I would get so angry is because I felt disrespected.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, I don't think it's about my kids being perfect. I think it's about them showing respect for the situation they're in.
Do you think that's unique in your particular circumstance, or do you think at some age all kids go to like the dark side of the moon and then eventually circle back to?
No, listen, I thought we were the only ones dealing with all this, and I've become friends with a lot of dads now who are, in the area, and far worse issues that I'm dealing with. So I think it's teenager. I
Yeah,
think, I think he's just growing up. He's figuring life out, man. And I think what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to let him get hit in the face with the ball.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, I told my wife, I said, we have got to let him figure this diabetes. I said, I'm not saying we're not going to be here to bring him to the hospital,
Hmm.
but we have to let go a little bit and let him realize that when he controls it himself, this is the result.
Yeah,
Almost has to get to the spot where he it's dramatic, because otherwise you're never going to know what you're doing wrong, how it's affecting you. And so I told her, I said, we got to let him get hit in the face with the ball more,
what are some of the things that you think have created the best growth for your kids, like being involved with volunteering or playing in sports leagues, or school? Like, what do you think has built their character the most?
I think them being part of a team.
Yeah,
um, I also think, while my wife and I aren't always perfect, we argue from time to time, but I think them seeing that when we do argue and get upset with each other, that we still go to bed together and we wake up together, and that we're still here.
yeah.
And I think being an example of a unit,
Hmm.
and not running from things. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's times where I'm sure my wife has wanted to leave, and there's times I want. It's just that's just human emotion, right?
Yeah,
Um, but at the end of the day, we don't. And I made a decision when I got married that I'm the only one in my entire family who's never been divorced.
yeah,
So that's like, and I don't want to be. I want to be that statistic. There's just no reason. Like you know, just because you don't say the grass is not greener on the other side, it's greenest where you water it the most,
ah,
right?
yeah. I've never heard that.
But
I like that.
oh yeah, it's greenest where you water it the most, but it's also green right above septic tanks, right?
that's 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 good.
Right. So
Yeah,
just because things look good from the outside doesn't mean it always smells good on the inside. And so, we have, we have issues. I mean, everybody does, right?
yeah,
And a lot of it, unfortunately, most of it stems from health, my wife's health and my son's health, and but also my tenacity to, like, I'm such a doer that
yeah,
I expect everybody else to be a doer. I don't understand how you can walk by something, see that it's out of place, and not pick it up, or I'm not wired like that. My wife's like, why are you always doing stuff? I'm like, because, like, that's because it's not supposed to be there. And like, do you agree? Yeah. Okay. Well, it's been there. I mean, you've seen it 20 times. I'm gonna fix it.
yeah.
And when I was serving at church, it's kind of a funny story. When I was serving at church in Virginia, I was a usher, and this guy that's been in charge, I always heard him kind of being hard on the other ushers, like, because they're trying to have this perfect situation. And their church was at a high school, and I just it's so funny because I think it applies to our life and fatherhood and stuff. And he said your job's make sure the door doesn't slam, right?
Hmm.
So, because they record the sermons and they put them on Facebook Live and things like that. And so some lady came up with a wheelchair or something. I had to help her. Well, why I did that, someone else opened the door when they came out, and the door slammed.
Yeah,
He comes up to me and he goes, I told you, it's important for the door not to. So he didn't ask me why. And so, but I left church. I didn't say anything to him then, and I went to a baby supply store. It was Burlington Coat Factory. And I looked, and they had these foam wedges that you put on the door so it doesn't slam, right? So the kids' fingers don't get caught. So
yeah,
I came back, I bought like 10 of these things, right? They're like $5 a piece, whatever. So I bring them back, and there was 2 services. So I was able to get back there before he left, and I pulled him to the side and I said, there's a couple things I want to share with you. The first thing is, just as a man, not as a Christian, if you ever talk to me like that again, you'll get probably thrown through the wall. Okay. Cause
yeah,
I'm here serving. in a godly fashion, and you're not going to talk to me or try to embarrass me in front of other people when you don't know the circumstances. I'm a grown man. You're a grown man. We're both volunteering. Don't ever talk to me like that again.
Mhm.
Now, on another side of the note, I said to him, I said, here's your solution. I said, but what I want you to understand is you've been in charge here for over a year. For a year, I've been sitting in here listening to that door slam. And so what you've been doing is coming here telling everybody not to let the door slam. So now I'm giving you a tool so the door never slams again. So instead of telling people not to let something happen, why don't you be a problem solver and go find a solution to the problem? And so instead of putting buckets under leaks, right, fix the dang leak.
Yeah.
And so, he looked at me and just apologized, like he like it made sense to him, right? He was like, so I said, look, I'm not mad at you, but just you have to understand you're getting upset about something you could have fixed a long time ago. So I asked people, I use that as a point in many of my sales meetings. Are you the person who complains about the door slamming, or are you a person who stops the door from slamming?
Yeah.
Right. So there's a solution to everything. And so next thing I know, those things I got because they were just made for houses, they started ripping. So he comes up to me, he goes, hey, don't worry, I got duct tape. I made these things. They're never going to fall apart again. Look how good they work. And he was a different person.
Yeah.
So it was like an educational moment for him, but I think it was a moment for everybody because I was able to share the story to so many people. Like, don't be the guy that complains about the door slam, and be the guy that solves the problem. Right. And so that's just how I am wired. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it's unique or rare. I don't know if it's because of the way I was brought up. I don't know, but I just don't know why other people don't think like that. But
yeah, it is funny. I can relate to you on that level because I'll ask what I think is a simple question with a simple solution, but people get lost in the trees and don't see the forest. And I know I do that on occasion, have to get drawn out so I can get back to 40,000 feet and see the big picture. But what do you think drives people into those inabilities to see what's going on?
well, because I think they're so focused on, they're worried about the here and now. And, that's why inefficiencies happen in companies, because they're only worried. Like it's a prime example. I was just at my Richmond office, and I used the bucket analogy. Is I went into my call center, and one of the complaints we had from our dealers were that there was long hold times, right? And so I went in to find out. I'm like sitting there for 2 days, listening to calls, watching what's going on, and I'm seeing calls come in that really shouldn't be coming in. And I said, well, why are these technicians calling 200 times a day? Oh, I say, because when they get scheduled an install in the system, they're not assigned to a certain office. So every technician has a perimeter they're supposed to work in, and each perimeter is an office. Well, every now and then, more than now and then, quite often, they get assigned an install just outside their perimeter.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they can't see the customer.
Yeah.
So they have to call in and say, can you change the office location so I can see the information so I can go to the customer's house? This would take 10 minutes. That's a long time on the phone in a call center. So I said, this is ridiculous. And then one of my install directors was there, and he said, yeah, I remember when I was in IM, same thing. I'd have to take these calls all the time, and it's been happening for years. And I'm sitting there going, this is the stupidest thing I've ever seen. So I picked up the phone. I called one of my code writers, guy who works our database. And I said, this doesn't make sense to me. And he goes, well, explain to me what's going on. And I explained to him, and he goes, give me 10 minutes. Calls me back. He wrote code that now every morning it queries the installs to make sure the offices are lined up. Like that was just another bucket. They were taking this leak, putting the bucket in my office to solve the problem when they needed someone to go on the roof and fix the damn leak. And so in business, you have a lot of buckets, right? Those are the inefficiencies. You're still getting it done, right? But it's costing you more time and money and effort than necessary. And so I've gotten to a point where instead of working in my business, I work on my business. And so these are the things. Like I told my manager I was there, and I was like, I love this stuff. I love doing this because it's like you're fixing real problems. You're not just, but like you said, you used the word 40,000 feet, right? So I'm at 60,000 feet. The problem is when you're in the trenches in the call center, all you have time, if you stick your head up, you get shot in the head.
Yeah.
My job to say, guys, I see an easier route, right? Like I understand you're taking shots all day and you can't come out of your foxhole because you're scared to get killed. You're just trying to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish. My job is to say, look, I made it safe for you to come out of the foxhole. It's safe now.
Yeah.
Look what we accomplished, right? And so that in business, working on your business is different than working in your business.
I completely agree. I've been lost in my business the last couple months, and I'm excited to be working back on it again.
Big difference, isn't it?
Truly, it feels different, just the way you feel about it.
100%, because you start solving problems, you see efficiencies. If you pay attention to the ecosystem in your organization, you start seeing opportunities that technology can solve, right? And you don't have to hire more people, and just different. It's just streamlining. And I've used technology to the highest level in my organization to legitimately, systematically change the way we do things. So been real lucky to have good people around us. I got lucky to hire some good people that just are really good at solving problems. I'm good at identifying the problem, and I rely on smart people to fix them.
Right. I'm with you, man. Well, they're talking about being a doer. I want to get into some of my short answer questions for you.
Yeah.
So, like, being a doer as a father, what's on your not to-do list?
Ooh, as a father?
Yeah.
Whew, man, I think one of the biggest mistakes I make is I say everything that's on my mind to my kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes I probably should just keep my mouth shut.
Is that because your mind changes, or is it because they just
because
don't necessarily need to hear it?
I see things as so raw,
mm-hmm.
and sometimes kids are fragile, right? And I don't know, but like I'm sure every dad can relate to this. Is hygiene, for example, with kids? It's like, dude, come on, man. I'm like, this comedian said it best. He's like, Jojo, I'm over here. And and why do I smell you first? You're like 4 inches from your armpit, right? Why aren't you smelling you? And so like I'm probably pretty hard on them about their hygiene, because I don't know. I just like, we have nice showers. Why aren't you, nice soap? Why aren't you using it? I just don't get it. So my wife gives me a hard time all the time, because she goes, you really don't need to say everything that's on your mind. You know that, right?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if I have the ability not to. It's so simple to me. So I think for me, if the don'ts are, if I were to change anything, I would have let my kids get hit in the face a lot more.
Yeah.
With outside stuff, and maybe I would have hit them a little bit less on the inside.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I think if you're too critical, you become like, they don't feel like they could ever please you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think at times I worry that my son feels like he doesn't satisfy me. And the reality is he does. Like, I'm so proud of him, what he's accomplished with everything that he's faced with. But I don't know. I was told that your job as a dad is not to be their best friend. It's to be their, is for them to grow up first, right? Healthy, safe. And I just want what's best for them, Tyler. And I don't know if I'm doing it right or wrong, to be honest with you.
What's the biggest hope that you would have for your kids? Like, what would make you feel like
do what they want to do?
Yeah.
I don't give a shiitake about how much money they make. I don't care about any of that, because the result is, at the end of the day, if I continue to do what I'm doing, they'll be fine financially down the road. One recommendation I would say for people who have portfolios, who have success, is one of the things I was taught a long time ago in my estate is that my kids are going to get equal distribution of our wealth, but at a certain age, they'll get their portion when my wife and I, leave this earth. But until they hit that age, they can only draw out to match their salary.
Interesting.
So, now if one of them becomes a school teacher, he's going to feel like he's getting punished, but he's going to have a lot more money when he hits. Do you follow what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally.
Bigger payout at the end. But so it's not to punish them. It's just to drive them to want to do more. So if one of them makes $500,000 a year, he's going to deplete his money much quicker
Mhm.
than the guy making 50 grand a year, but they're still going to get the same amount of money. Does that make sense?
Totally, to empower your kids to not make a decision based on what the salary is. To be a teacher has got to be incredibly fulfilling. Otherwise, no one would do it for $33,000 a
You
year.
think? I mean, it's
Yeah,
the most underpaid position. I
on the
just think I
planet.
just want them to just be them. I don't give a I really, if my son says, I want to be the singing garbage man, I want to be the most well-known garbage man in the history of garbage men, I'm going to be like, dude, if you love what you do, if you love picking up garbage and you bring peace and happiness to everybody you talk to at work, and be a damn good garbage man. I really like that. It's not what they do. I just want whatever they do to do it with excellence. If they I don't care if they clean, if they're janitors. I mean, I swear to you, just whatever you do it with excellence.
Yeah.
And I think that's to go back. I think that's probably the most frustrating thing that you say sweep the garage, right?
Mhm.
It's half-ass,
Yeah.
not excellence. The best compliment I ever received when I was in the military was, Weinstein, I've never seen a bathroom that clean. I don't like cleaning bathrooms, Tyler.
Yeah.
But if the commander told me to clean the bathroom, you can bet your ass it's going to be the cleanest bathroom that's ever been cleaned, because I'm not going to do it half-assed. I'm going to get behind it. I'm going to get underneath it. It's going to be done right. So if you tell me to do something, I am only programmed to do it the right way.
You think that's ingrained in you, or do you think you were conditioned to be that way?
I just think condition, because I had to do so much. I mean, this true story, when I was 5 years old, I built my own bike. It had, and I'll try to picture it. It was a 10-speed frame with dirt bike forks and a tiny tire on the front.
Mhm.
It had a banana seat, and it had monkey handlebars, and it had, there was no brakes, and it was a 10-speed freewheel, and all parts I found at the dump, and a pair of vice grips. I was 5 years old. I built my own bike. And, so I grew up building bikes and scrounging from the dump. And then I became a freestyler. I ended up, bikes were my passion. I rode quarter pipes. And then I went from bikes to, fun fact, I think if I stuck with it, I would have went pro as a skateboarder. I was sponsored as a skateboarder. I was before I went in the military. I mean, I was all doing all this stuff, and I just poured, I would get up at 4 a.m, go to a parking lot with lights and practice skating.
Yeah.
Like, it was just whatever I want to be good at, I put passion. Like my house, I have a golf studio. Like I don't shoot pool anymore because I'm not good at it anymore, and it doesn't bring me joy. I only want to do things that I feel like I'm good at.
Yeah.
And if I'm going to do it, I'm going all in.
So you're not saying you're not doing new things. You just, if you're going to start something new, you're going to do it till you're good at it.
100%. I want to play the guitar so bad. I want to learn how to play the guitar so bad, but I know I don't have time right now, and I'm going to do it. And I've already said to myself, in 2023, I'll probably semi-retire and just work on the board.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of have a plan, but that's when I will go full-fledged, learn how to play the guitar. I guarantee I'll learn how to play it.
I believe you.
It's just, I have a goal. I will not die without learning how to play the guitar.
Yeah.
It might not be great at it, but I'm going to try. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. So if you're writing a book about being your life as a parent, what would be the name of some of the chapters?
Ooh, that's a good question, man. Wow. Of being a dad?
Mm-hmm.
I can't. Chapter 1 was, I can't believe I said that. I can't believe I said that. I had a situation the other day where I told my son, he was upsetting me about something. I said, dude, you're going to be 18 in 2 weeks. I said, here's the deal, man. You get to do what you want when you're 18. I said, you can move out. I said, but here just so you understand, you got to drop off the stuff that's not yours. The car, the phone. I'll give you a few pairs of shoes and a few outfits, but do you have credit to get your own apartment? Do you and I was really just trying to make a point. And then he got in my face, and he was like, tears in his eyes. You really want me to, you're going to kick me out when I'm 18? I'm like, I never said I was going to kick him out.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, I never said that. What I'm saying is, you're acting like you can do all this on your own. Mm-hmm. You're forgetting as a parent. I think another chapter would be why, something along the lines of why can't a teenager feel like he's part of the team, right?
Yeah.
Teenagers want to be individual, and I get it, but the teenagers I think that become successful quickly and have a lot of peace in their life is when they realize that the people at home are there to help them
Mm-hmm.
and not working against them. I think my son feels like a lot of times we're working against him.
Yeah.
All I want is like excellence for him. I bought him a brand new Nissan Sentra, fully loaded, leather interior, sport package. I mean, it's a Nissan Sentra, right? I get it. Now he's upset that my wife, we drive Range Rovers and R8s, and he said people at school made fun of him for that car. And I was like, dude, you need some new friends, bro, because I had a 73 Pontiac Sunbird with duct tape on the sunroof so it wouldn't leak, man. Don't, are you kidding me? They're making fun of you. You have a brand new car. That's a dream car to some single moms, buddy. You know? Would you?
I totally agree. My first car was an '85 Volvo that my dad overpaid $3,500 for. I mean, I still got the car. I didn't appreciate it at the time, but my dad gave me the car.
Yeah, it's hard to appreciate it, man. And so I think what would another chapter be would be, I don't know, ways to get them to appreciate things. I don't know how you ever do that. I mean, it's like, it's funny because my son, I took him to the Super Bowl. We're Patriot fans, so we've had just total success, right?
Yeah.
My son doesn't know the Patriots when they sucked. He's only known the Patriots whole life for the last 20 years. He's 18. It's been a dynasty for 20 years.
Yeah.
And they've been to 9 Super Bowls in 20 years and have won 6 of them. Like, no, the stats are. So I took him to the Super Bowl against the Giants at Lucas Oil Stadium, and we lost. And he was crying the whole time. He said it was his fault. It was his fault that they lost because he went there. And I'm like, he was little. And I'm like, dude. And I told people, I said, it was such a better lesson for him to see them lose.
Yeah.
Because if he won, he would have went to school and bragged. And he was more upset because he said there was a Jets fan that was going to make fun of him at school. And the reason he was upset because he was being somewhat of a jerk, bragging about the Patriots. And I always told him, I said, don't brag, dude. Yeah. Just wear the logo. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's a saying in golf, Tyler, that act like you've been there before. Never ruin a good shot with your mouth, meaning, let's say the pin is tucked far left right against the water and you hit you're aiming for the right side of the green, you hit a hook and it lands 3 feet from the pin. Well, only you need to know that you weren't trying to do that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You got to say, man, I finally pulled it. So I teach like guys that are trying to go pro. I mean, I'm not as good as them. I'm a pretty good golfer, but I'm not as good as them. But I am psychologically, I know how to kind of overcome adversity. I said, when you hit a bad shot, you need to, but it works out. Instead of letting your opponent know that you hit a bad shot, you should say, I finally pulled it off, and just walk away.
Yeah.
Because it's very psychological. Because if you're not dead, what's the sense of getting upset? I look at bad shots as an opportunity to hit a great shot.
Yeah.
Because now, if it's in the middle of the fairway, well, it's so much better when you got to punch it from under a tree and you bump and run it up to 4 feet. I mean, that's pretty awesome, right? Like, hitting it on the green from the fairway, we're expected to do that, right? So, life is, I think, until you get punched in the mouth, you don't know what your game plan really is.
Have you ever done jiu-jitsu before?
I have not.
I just did my second class yesterday, and I brought my 4-year-old daughter to class.
You're doing it?
Yeah, I just started. My neck is sore as shit today.
Dude, that's awesome, man.
I spent 3 hours between the 2 days learning my place in the world. I got really good at tapping out. It's like it was a big slice of humble.
And they probably weren't even being that hard on you.
No, they just play with you until they don't feel like playing with you. I outweigh these guys by 20 pounds. I could deadlift or bench twice their, what
but they just kept getting you in different.
Yeah, but
technique.
Yeah, and the idea for me was if I can get my daughter into this, and she got her butt kicked by another 4-year-old. She didn't know the difference between winning and losing. And if she'd lose, she'd tap out and then smile, look at me, give me the thumbs up and go again. It's like if she knows she doesn't know what I know. The world hadn't conditioned us to compare ourselves to other people and winning and losing, but it's an immediate feedback to know where you are, to lose and then go again. And I felt like that will build resilience in my daughter. She sticks to it. And you just made me think of that because I'm so fresh off of it. But what an incredible practice I think that is. And you're okay. You just be okay losing because you get to go, you get to get your ass up and go right again.
I want to take a second to compliment my kids. I was just thinking about something. You talk about resilience and stuff, but I think something I've seen my kids do that they shine, that it makes me so happy, is they are so anti-bully.
Yeah.
I've taught them to hate bullies and to protect the weak, right? Because when I was in school, I just couldn't stand seeing people bullied. It just used to make me so angry. And so they're very, very aware of that. And then I see them interact with less capable kids and handicapped kids. And it makes me feel so good to know that I've had parents come up to me and say, hey, your son was so nice to my kid when everybody was ignoring him. I just want to say thank you. And it's like, it's weird because you're like, it's so powerful to hear that, because you can't, like, that's in his heart. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's hard. He was doing something when he didn't know anybody was paying attention.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
It is beautiful. And I think about that, and I need to think, you got me thinking more about that, because isn't it so easy to focus on the flaws?
Mm-hmm.
We focus so much on the flaws. I joke around because it's, for me, you edit this a little bit, right?
We'll tighten it up, but yeah.
Oh, okay. But my son, I always say, like, because it used to drive me nuts, he'd take hour showers, right? And I'm like, dude, like, you still smell like sweat. I mean, something smells like Pantene. I don't know what it is. You know what I mean? So we joke around about that, because you're like, dude, how can you be in the shower for an hour and come out and still have body odor? But so, like, that's the one thing I have not been able to just ignore is hygiene. It drives me nuts because you have the means.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I would go days without showering because we didn't have hot water.
Yeah.
My mom literally would have to boil water on a stove. We had a gas stove, put it in the sink, mix it with cold water, and give me a bath in the sink. We would keep the oven open for heat.
Wow.
And so it was just, it is what it is. And so, we've had people throw boulders through our door, through our window. I mean, we grew up in the projects, and like, my kids, they have everything they need. They have $50 bottle of cologne. They have deodorant. They have toothpaste. They have showers. They have clean towels. They have clean clothes. They have everything they need, yet they still walk out of the room with dirty clothes on. I'm just like, really, dude?
Yeah.
Like, so I don't know if that's part of being a teenager, or if I did a crappy job teaching them about that stuff. I don't know the answer to that. Like, I talk to other parents, and it cracks me up. And there was a comedian, Joe Coy, this Filipino guy, who talks about hygiene on his 12-year-old. And it's so funny. We had our kids watch it. We all laughed together. Even they laughed together because it was so right. He talked about his kid's breath in his armpits. And even my son was laughing because he realized that, I got to a point now where I said, dude, I just want you to know I love you. Have a great day. You stink.
All right. So let's see. I'm going to ask you, who's your favorite television dad?
Oh, wow. Favorite television dad. Used to be Bill Cosby.
Yeah.
Used to be Bill Cosby. You know what I grew up a lot watching? It was Little House on the Prairie.
Yeah.
I did.
What was it about the dad there?
He was hardworking, and he was compassionate, and he loved his kids so much. It was just, you could just see. So I think I liked it so much because you saw at night when they go to bed, you just saw mom and dad there, and they're reading. And I don't know if I watched it inadvertently, seeking that, wishing I had that.
Sure. Yeah.
But I think when I think back as a kid, I would probably say the dad on Little House on the Prairie. And Growing Pains was another one.
A gift.
Kirk Cameron was in it. Not
Okay.
was it who was the dad in Growing Pains? He passed away. His son's the
Michael
musician.
J. Fox.
No, not Michael J. Fox. What the heck's his name? Um, I can't think of it. I'll have to Google it.
It's going to pop into your head.
I'm gonna have to Google it, Tyler, because it's driving me nuts. Dad in Growing Pains. You'd know him. I think he just passed away. Alan Thicke.
Alan Thicke. Yeah, of course. Robin Thicke, Alan Thicke, Canadian guys.
So he was a cool dad too. Like just remember that. Watching those shows, and it was Hollywood. And so it was my sense of fantasy wishing. And I would always go hang out at friends' houses. It was interesting growing up. I never was able to have sleepovers at my house, but I went to a school that was sort of in between a nice area and the hood. So it was a public school, so it was mixed. And so I was able to do sleepovers at other people's. What always I think back, and the parents would like give me care packages when I left. I thought it was the coolest thing. They would give me clothes and food to take home, and I'm like, wow, these people are nice. But really, they just felt bad for me, because I would come over with dirty clothes on.
Sure.
No toothbrush, no change for tomorrow, and just go to do a sleepover, and I'd come home with a new outfit.
God, it's so hard to think about. Like I can't fathom that life.
It was. I wouldn't change it, but it is what it is, man. I mean, you're a kid. It's all hand-me-downs, but it wasn't abnormal to me.
Yeah.
Like if you grow up in a jungle in a tribe, you don't know any different.
Mm-hmm.
I could never live in a jungle. Yes, you could if you were born into it, and you don't know any different. The only reason we miss TV is because we know what TV is.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you never had something, how can you miss it?
Yeah. It makes perfect sense.
We're conditioned.
Tim Ferriss, I don't know if you've listened to any of his podcasts or read his books. One of my favorite questions I steal from him. It's the billboard question. Imagine you're on I-4 going 80 miles an hour. You must not be in the heart of the city. You're out somewhere else if you're going 80 miles an hour. But you've got a billboard, and you get all the dads see this billboard, and it's got to be legible, but you can put a message on there to all the dads as a piece of advice.
Wasting time is murdering opportunity.
Love it.
Wasting time is murdering opportunity. I say that a lot because every day that goes by that you don't take action on goals, dreams, and aspirations, every day that goes by that you don't tell someone that you really love that you love them, every day that goes by that you don't pour into your family or think about what's next, wasting time is murdering opportunity. And procrastination is the assassin to success.
Yeah. Love it. Gift. This is one of my favorite questions too. It's just kind of a stealing from Tim Ferriss too. If you can,
we all steal. By the way, Tyler, stop.
Yeah.
This is how it works. Let me tell you how this works when you take someone's information. So the first time you use it, you're going to say, Tim Ferriss always says, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the next time you use it, the second time you use it, you'll say, a friend of mine uses this statement. The third time it's yours. You own it. You don't ever have to say Tim Ferriss anymore. It's yours. If you've used it 3 times, you got to own it.
I've got this great question that I own that I'm going to ask you now. A gift. If you could give a gift of whatever you can think of to every father on the planet, what would that gift be?
Something I lack tremendously: patience.
Great.
I think if you could be patient and ask yourself before you react, is it really going to matter tomorrow, next week, or next year? Is what I'm upset about, can I not react, have enough patience? I always say, can I have enough patience not to react, to try to understand what's really happening so I can truly make a difference as a dad? Patience is definitely patience.
Patience. All right, I got 3 more questions. So this one was provided to me by a friend.
You're a quick learner.
And it is, when do you feel the most loved?
my kids are happy, and when I'm with my family and all the stars are lined up. When it's hard, it's going to try to put this in words. It's it's as simple as the four of us sitting together, and our kids' heads aren't buried into the phones, and they're talking to me about exciting things in their life, and like I feel like I'm actually part of something with them. I don't know if I'm putting it in the right context, but it, so many times I feel like I'm constantly just being the thumb on their head, get this done, get this done, where I think I miss out so much on how much they really do love me.
Mm-hmm.
So when I stop everything I'm doing and I'm only focused on them, and I realize that there is reciprocation in the amount of love I give them,
Yeah.
sometimes I'm so blinded by the way I process things
Mm-hmm.
that I view too many things as being disrespected instead of as this is a normal growth process for these kids. So for me, it's when I'm engaged, as simple as my son telling me a funny story, that he's willing to come home and share a cool story with me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, it has no meaning to anything other than to him. And the fact that he took the time to share that with me, and I can laugh and say, that's cool. That's funny. I love you, man. And just, to feel like he sees me as part of his life. My boys.
On Monday, I took my daughter to the first class. It was daddy-daughter time for like 3 hours, just the two of us. And when we got home, she followed me around everywhere. I'd sit down, she'd sit next to me. I'd stand up, she'd walk next to me. And it wasn't like holding my hand. It wasn't sitting on my lap. It was just sitting next to me. And it felt like the love that moms get all the time.
All the time, bro.
It
Like
made me want to cry that I'll never have a love that a mom gets. Like,
100%, man. And I think as dads, we have this hard persona, right? We're my wife is a stay-home mom, and she does a lot of for the family, but um at the same token, it's like we are so focused on having to get stuff done
mm-hmm.
that I think a lot of times I'll come home and I think, if you were to ask my wife, the most time she feels unloved is probably when I get home and I'm trying to decompress.
Yeah.
And I'm not listening to her day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I can't believe you're talking to me about this right now. Do you realize what my day was like? And that's selfish of me to even think like that, as if her day doesn't matter to her. I tell my wife this, and I practice what I preach, is when a kid tells you he's upset about something, and I would tell this to all dads, don't brush it under the rug. Like, if someone says, man, if she broke up with me and I loved her, and the worst thing you can say is, you don't know what love is. Like, how can you know what love is this young? Well, if you're a Christian and you say Jesus is God is love, and they say they're Christian and they believe in God, well, then how can you say that they don't know what love is, right? So it's unfair for an adult to tell a young person, and kids end up doing terrible things to themselves and go into Great Depression because they get conflicting messages from their parents. Like, I was in love when I was a kid. At least I thought I was. And then my heart was broken.
Yeah.
And then, my mom had compassion for that.
Mm-hmm.
Parents don't always have compassion. Like, you don't know what the hell love is, man. What are you talking about? Get over it.
Yeah.
Then you're telling your kid that his feelings and emotions are not real.
Yeah. They're very real.
I would say no matter where your kids are at in life, give validity to their feelings.
Yeah.
I think we discount their feelings.
Do you think a kid can love a parent as much as a parent can love a kid?
I think a kid naturally loves his parent, but doesn't recognize it always until later in life.
Yeah.
I think when push comes to shove, like my son, my oldest son, he could be really, really hard on his mom. But whenever I watch, whenever there's desperation in need, I see him fold like a lawn chair and just accept mom's care and mom's arms. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, there's a certain love that a mom can give that dads just don't have.
Yeah.
And it's not a fair comparison, because think about how natural survival is. Like, in the wild, they're designed to survive and protect.
Mm-hmm.
I watched, yesterday, there was a goose with baby geese, and one of the baby geese get hit by a car,
Oh,
and the mother would not leave the dead goose. They just stood right in the middle of the road with her other babies and didn't know what to do.
yeah.
That's maternal instincts.
Mhm.
When a bear attacks you because you're near her cub, it's a maternal instinct, right? You can't. So if you think the animals in the wild are do that, they do it without any recourse, realizing that if they kill somebody, there's no recourse to them, right? It is what it is.
Yeah.
In life, we have recourse because we are programmed with emotions and feelings, and we have results, we have consequences to our actions, and so. But the maternal instinct is so powerful, man.
Truly.
I mean, how do you can't run from it. My wife's really maternal. And I'm maternal, but I'm also like, feel like I'm at the point where it's like, all right, now it's time for you to go find your own way.
Yeah.
Not without my love, not
Mhm.
without the car I bought you, not without the clothes I've given you, not without the money in the bank I'm giving you, but it's time to go.
Yeah.
You got to leave the nest, kid. Got to leave the nest. Because you become a man at some point.
Yeah. Okay. Oh man, I lost it.
Take your time, bro.
Yeah. All right. What kind of father do you want to be remembered as?
Hard worker, love, a compassionate dad. Yeah, I have a feeling people are going to say, I have a feeling when this comes to shove, my kids are going to describe me as, my dad was tough, but I always knew how much he loved me.
Yeah.
I hope it's not my dad was an asshole. Because I know for a fact they've said it.
Probably with just cause, huh?
100%. I've said it so many times. Like I'm like hard on stupid things, but I've learned. I mean, that's early on. I've learned to lighten up a little bit.
Yeah.
You just learn to lighten. I think if I would have I couldn't even imagine I told my wife, I said, God really looked out for me. I said, I know we didn't want to lose two daughters, but we ended up with two sons because I don't know how I could have handled two daughters. I don't know, man. I would have been way protective.
Yeah.
That would have been a tough one, but
I think they condition you over time. Like I ask people with older daughters, how do you manage, boys being in their life and stuff. And I think they start prepping you for it early. Like when they're 4, they come home with a crush on whoever. And you're always uncomfortable a little bit. You're never like super uncomfortable.
yeah, because you don't want nobody touching your baby, it's like, and that's going to be your baby forever. But at some point you're going to walk her down the aisle. Right. And, and like, you don't think about it like that when they become adults, but when they're kids, you're like, whoa, it was way too soon.
Oh,
Way too
always.
soon. But I mean, I started way young, too young, because I had no supervision. But yeah, I want to be remembered as somebody who cared, somebody who really looked out for his kids, and I worked hard.
All right, so this is my last question for you. Your boys are going to have kids. They're going to have kids. Those kids are going to have kids. In the event this audio lasts for eternity, what's a message that you would want to pass along to your family forever?
Making me dig into my Rolodex. That's a good question, Tyler. I mean, that's a really good question. And I'm glad you didn't ask me ahead of time and give me time to think about it, because I don't know if I would give, I would probably give you a Googled answer. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I love about this conversation. It's just authentic. There's no prep, right? I mean, people are getting authenticity, probably maybe too much, but in the same token,
list of questions, but I've only asked 4 of them.
You didn't give me those questions though, so I didn't have time to prep. What would I want my great grandkids to know about me, or know about being a father?
You got 2 minutes to say whatever you want.
Well, I hope is that I will be the first example in my family of till death do us part.
Mm-hmm.
as parents, right? I remember on my 20th anniversary, I told my wife says to me, she says, 20 years, can you believe it? And of course, with a smile, I look at her and I go, I was thinking, babe, if I would have killed you the first time I wanted to, I'd probably be out on good behavior right now. Of course, she knows my humor. If we had a dime for every time someone said to my wife, how do you do it?
Yeah.
She's a strong woman because I'm always, I'm a fun guy. I joke, I say things off color, but I always do it with a smile. And I think good humor is when you can say things that you don't really mean, but say them like you mean it, but they know you don't mean it. You know what I mean? Like, have fun. Yeah. But I would want them to see an example. Hopefully we set an example where my kids realize that through the good, the bad, and the ugly, that you don't run. I probably in my life, we've gone through, you think about it, losing 2 kids, wife having a stroke, diabetes, all these different things. This is when my wife and I get in heated moments, I say to her, yeah, it sucks right now, but just remember who your rock is. Like, I haven't left. Yeah. Like, so yeah, maybe I'm not perfect in certain areas, but I have not left. I lay down next to you every single night, no matter what happens. I've never slept on the couch. I don't sleep in a different room. I'm always here. And I might not always be happy to be here because, that's called marriage, man. It's not perfect, right? Yeah. So I've learned to be more patient. I've learned to be more compassionate. I've learned to let things brush off my shoulder a little bit, even though, and I've gotten in my car and screamed. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. But I've always come home. I never not come home. And so I hope that my grandkids, I hope that when they find their mate and their partner, and I hope they view us as a good example. Yeah. Right. I hope at the end of the day, my kids view me as an example of what to do, not what not to do, because I viewed my dad as what not to do. Yeah. Right. I want my kids to view me as what to do. And so, someone said something to me the other day that really made my heart just kind of mush. Was I was frustrated with my son, and I have a lot of good friends, and they are very interested in my kids, right? And they show interest in my kids. And he said to me, he goes, dude, I know you're upset. I know that he's giving you a hard time. He goes, but I've talked to him, and your son, all he wants to do is impress you. And the only reason he lies to you about certain things is, and he knows he's always going to get caught, but he's trying to avoid disappointing you at the moment. Yeah. He would rather delay the disappointment than see the pain on your face to face. Mm-hmm. And so it took me a minute to realize, and then I think back, I lied to my mom a zillion times, Tyler. I mean, God, if I was honest with my mom, she would have had me put down. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like I always say, like, I don't know if I'm more upset that my son does things that he shouldn't do. And it's not horrific. Don't get me wrong. It's not like we have like drug problems or anything in my house. It's not that. It's just, it's silly things. But I feel like if you don't take care of the little things, they turn into big things. Right. Sure. But it's like, if I was straightforward, oh my gosh, like, I just don't like to be lied to. Yeah. But I've lightened up a little bit. I say to my wife, I actually stick up for him sometimes when he's not telling the truth. I said, babe, wouldn't you try to avoid telling us, disappointing us if you made a mistake like that? Like, come on, let's lighten up a little. Let's lighten up a little bit. The reason he's doing this is because he's upset and he's angry with himself and he's mad at himself, and let's not make it about you and I. Let's think about his perspective. Yeah. So hopefully, to answer your question, I hope it's that we were an example of what to do, not what not to do. I love it, man. Good enough answer, but that's what's on my heart. No, I think that's an awesome answer. And, I learned a lot talking to you. I appreciate your time. Thanks so much for being on the podcast and sharing your experiences. I have no doubt anybody that listens to it is going to get great stuff out of it, from parenting to selling, man. Yeah. I think it all goes hand in hand, Tyler. I think, you're a good salesman. You can sell your way through parenthood too. I mean, keeping kids happy is a constant sales pitch, right? My wife's obviously a great salesperson because she milks me for 2 anniversaries. So, um,